Okay, fine. So start the recording. Okay, quick feedback whether this is visible.
Yes, sir. You just have to zoom a little.
Yeah. Okay, so we are just trying to understand the PWM from a different perspective. And we saw that for a scalar quantity, if we are trying to realize that, we need only one variable because obviously it's just a number what we are trying to achieve. So one variable, let's say t on, is sufficient to realize that particular number, let's say x, or that particular voltage. But here, since we are dealing with a vector quantity, so obviously two things are associated with that. One is the magnitude and another is the phase. So that's why d1 and d2, these both are important for realization. These both are necessary. So or T1 and T2 if we are saying. So let's say if I write the equation again, so it can be written as this vector which we are trying to realize, let's say V1 vector for duration of T1 plus V2 vector for duration of T2 and averaged over Ts. So here both T1 and T2 are independent based on what is the magnitude of V and what is the angle of V. So we have third variable that is called Tz, and this is essentially required to have a constant switching cycle. This is what we have seen. So the purpose of Tz is to only have a constant switching cycles. Whatever is the gap Ts minus T1 plus T2, this is basically allotted to Tz. So which is how we realize this. Now for conventional space vector PWM, we divide this part equally Tz for two zero vectors Tz by 2, Tz by 2. Let's say for V0 and V7. Whereas for sine triangle, so this is for conventional space vector PWM. Here it is not decided equally or not divided equally. This is some Tz1 and Tz2. So of course this we are not computing. So whatever comes with the triangular comparison, we are taking that value. Fine. Or feeling
Yes, sir.
sleepy? Some response should be there. Okay. So let us try to see how the space vector looks little bit. So this is little tricky to draw, and that's why let's have a feeling of how it looks like. So here, what you see as the small dot which is moving, are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
This is basically your voltage vector, which is rotating continuously. This is your fundamental sinusoidal voltage vector. So this is a vector which is rotating. The tip is always on the circumference of the circle. The bigger arrows which you see, the 6 vectors, these are basically your states of the particular converter, two-level inverter. These are 6 active states. 2 zero states are at 0. And whatever intermediate red vectors you are seeing, those are basically samples. So let us say, now if this vector is moving between 90 and 150, which means in sector 1, so we are sampling it at different intervals. This is for pulse number 5, which you did in the examination. So it is symmetrically placed. The samples are symmetrically placed in the sector. Now, as this vector is moving within this interval, we are realizing these vector samples. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir.
So the moment this tip of the vector enters this domain of sector 1, we start applying these or start realizing these samples one by one in sequential order. And that is how we realize the motion of this fundamental vector within this sector. And similarly for all the sectors. This is clear, right, or not? Paritosh?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Coming clear? Pooja,
Yes, sir.
Vijeta?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So now, once we have understood this, that how we are so similar to how we had sinusoidal voltage and then samples over there, here we have some rotating vector and we are having discrete samples of that. So bit different in understanding, but we are doing the same thing essentially. There is no difference in that. Now, let us try to understand that there are many ways to realize this vector. So if let us say we have sector 1, and we are trying to realize this particular sample. So there could be many sequences in which we can realize this, right? We have learned about sequence like 0127 or 7210, what generally the conventional space vector PWM or sine triangle PWM uses. Then we learned that it is not necessary to have two zero vectors. We can as well do the same thing by having just one zero vector. Let's say 0, 1, 2. This itself is sufficient to realize this vector. Now you understand why, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
zero
Yes.
vector is not contributing. It is only maintaining the constant TS. And 1 and 2 are sufficient to realize. Similarly, we can have 7 to 1. So we found that these methods actually correspond to bus clamping techniques because the particular phase is not switching if you apply these sequences. So let's say for 00012 we have minus 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 then plus plus minus, sorry, plus minus minus then plus plus minus. So here we have B phase clamped. It is all minus throughout. For 7 to 1, we have this vector sequence applied. So we have R phase clamped completely for this interval. So if we keep on applying this or this kind of sequence, we will achieve bus clamping for one of the phases. This is clear, right? Then we went for some advanced bus clamping sequences. Advanced means basically apart from achieving the bus clamping, they are doing something more. That's why those are called advanced bus clamping. Let's say this is something like 1012. Again, what we are applying is plus minus minus, minus minus minus, plus minus minus, and plus plus minus. Again, V phase is clamp. Or something like 2721. So here what is happening, we have plus plus minus, plus plus plus, plus plus minus, plus minus minus. R phase is clamp. Are you seeing that? Now, apart from achieving this bus clamping, what extra this is doing, this sequence, how this 1012 or 0127 or 7210 or 012 or 712, all these are different. What they are basically doing with the current. They must be doing something, changing something. Otherwise, why we will have different sequences? Sine triangle, we have just one, 0127. If you add some third harmonic for bus clamping or something, it changes. But here we have limitless possibilities. But the difference, what it makes, that we need to understand a little bit. Now, okay, let me see if I have that sector drawn over here or not. Okay, let's take this. So let's say this is sector 1, which we are taking for example, to understand how different sequences are operating and what they are doing. Let's say this is vector 1, vector 2, we have vector 0, vector 7. And a vector, let us say somewhere at some 20 degree we are trying to realize some magnitude, let's say let's say up to this we are trying to realize this vector, which is Vs. Now we have understood that whenever we are applying the PWM to our load, we are basically having some voltage error, isn't it? And this voltage error is nothing but what we are applying minus what is actually needed. We applied minus V actually. This error is correct for even vectors also. So whenever, let's say, we compute this kind of error in space vector, these quantities become vector. So we will have error in the voltage vector, which is actually the applied voltage vector minus the actual voltage vector. Let's say this is Vs. So I may write this as Vs. Now, what options we have here? If we talk about this sector, we are applying, let's say, 0 or 1 or 2 or 7. These are the 4 possibilities which we may apply within this sector. So then our error could be, now if we apply 0 vector, what our error would be? 0 minus Vs. So that means minus of Vs, that is the error. Understanding my point? That is the error which we are causing in the system. This becomes minus Vs. When we are applying, V applied is equal to 0 vector. Now when we apply 1, then what is the error? This will be V1 vector minus Vs vector, which means this. Understanding my point? And when we apply
Yes, sir.
2, so here we applied is V1. When we apply vector 2, it is simply V2 minus Vs. And again, when we are applying 7, that time again this error is minus Vs. Understanding? So this third error is something like this: V2 minus Vs. This error along this. And yeah. So now let me make copy of this. We'll be reproducing this several times. Okay. So when we have any voltage error coming into our system, we know that there is going to be some current ripple associated with that. And that ripple can be computed like this. Isn't it? So this is basically our KVL, which is true for stator quantity like our scalar quantities, and even true for our vector quantities. So this error in current vector can be written in terms of error in voltage vector like this. Now the I and V are vector quantities. So whenever we have error in terms of voltage vector, we have current vector having ripple on it. Understanding my point? In ideal scenario, what will happen? Our current vector will be going on a circular trajectory. But whenever there is ripple, it will deviate from its path. That is what we are trying to see, how that path will look like. Correct? Clear or not?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you see closely, your IL vector or error in the or ripple in the current vector given by this dt. So if you observe these quantities at this particular instant, let us say when we have sampled our Vs and we are computing these, V error is basically fixed. It is either this or this or this or this. One of the four options. L is fixed, and time over which this error is occurring, that is also fixed. Tz by 2, T1, T2 and Tz by 2. Correct? So which means this quantity, the ripple, what we are saying is basically scaled version of this voltage error. So basically this is whatever Tx time by L times of voltage error. Understanding my point? You understand my point, right?
Yes, sir.
My voltage error is scaled by Tx by L, and that is what is basically my current error or ripple in the current vector, because all the quantities are fixed. Vs is fixed, V1 minus Vs is fixed, V2 minus Vs is fixed, and again the last is also fixed. So what it means basically that our ripple is only going to be a section of these error vectors. Small portion of this vector, whatever error vector you have drawn, that is going to be our part of our current ripple. Now, if we go in sequence, we are applying 0, 1, 2, 7. And time periods we know for conventional space vector Tz by 2, T1, T2 and Tz by 2. So let us see. If this is, let us say, our origin or the 0 point, mean point. So what is happening? First we are applying our voltage 0. So error is along this vector, along vector Vs. This line corresponds to that. So it will be a fraction of this vector. Let us say up to here. Then we are applying V1, the vector 1. So error is this. Now our current vector will be extending along this line, this error line. So it will be a fraction of that line. Again, when we apply 2, the error is this. So the current error is going to be a fraction of this line, but parallel to this. So it will be extended something like this. And finally, what we have Tz by 2, V7 applied. So it will come back to 0. This is how the trajectory of your current ripple would look like for 0, 1, 2, 7. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir.
Now, if let us say you apply the other sequence 7, 2, 1, 0, what will happen? So let's remove all this. Now we are applying 7210. So we have 7210 applied for the respective times, which is Tz by 2, T1, T2, then T1 and then Tz by 2. So now let us say on the same line I draw ripple for this. So this is my mean point, 0 point. Then again the vector applied is 7th, so the error is along this actual vector. So a fraction of that. Let me draw with red. Then we are applying vector 2. Vector 2 is along this. So our error is going to be something like this, parallel to V2. And then we have vector 1, which is along this line. So our error is going to be something like this. And then coming back to the origin when we apply 0. So this is what happens when we apply this sequence 7210. Understanding my point? See how the ripple has changed. Correct? Now, one more thing I will add on top of this. because this is vector, so obviously this has different components. So soon we will be going for all DQ transformation and all for motor control. But here, just to give a glimpse, this is synchronously revolving vector. So our reference frame, which is synchronously revolving, is also going to be attached with this. So if you overlap your Q axis with the voltage vector, that is the general convention. I will explain later on why. But this is the general convention. If you keep your D and Q axis like this, then you can actually tell what is the ripple on the D axis current and what is the ripple on the Q axis current. Understanding my point? Now, why this is important, D axis and Q axis ripple, this we will see in a short while. So what ripple we are seeing on the vector, that is looking little bit abstract, that okay, this is some triangle, this is some triangle. This has meaning in terms of ID and IQ ripple. So let me plot for, let's say, this 0, 1 to 7. If you plot your D axis and Q axis ripples, how it would look like. So probably we take it down, then it would be better. Understanding this point, what I'm trying to make here, everyone? Yes or no?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Any confusion here? Any confusion?
No, sir.
So what we have basically, when you are applying a sequence like 0, 1 to 7, you are having something like going like this, then the error is coming over here and then going there and then coming back to 0. Now what it is doing basically, when you are overlapping your D and Q axis along this, the projection of this error on these axes will actually give you what is the error on the, or what is the ripple on the D and Q axis. Now see carefully what I am doing. Simply let us draw the D and Q axis with time. So we have 4 intervals, Tz by 2, T1, T2, and again Tz by 2. This is simple. Let's say this is D axis, so ID ripple, and this is Q axis, so IQ ripple. This is 0 value. Now you see carefully. This is your Q axis. So when you are starting, the ripple is moving along Q axis. Then what is the error on D? 0. It is maintaining 0 error on the D axis. Understanding my point? Whereas on the Q, because it is extending completely on the Q axis, so it is growing. It reaches to some value on the Q axis here. That is what this is. Whereas on D, it is still at 0. There is nothing on the D side. The moment you come for voltage vector 1 applied, then you have this ripple coming out of Q axis. So which means this has some projection on D. So it will extend something like this. Whereas here, it has actually gone on the positive side of Q. If this is the mean value, 0 value, this has gone on the positive side. So something, let's say, up to this. Again, when you have 2, this is looking almost perpendicular to the Q axis. So this is creating lot of change on the D, but very small change on the Q, because the error is perpendicular almost. So this D axis ripple would look like this. It is reaching 0, again reaching the Q axis. And for the rest of the time, Tz by 2, D is maintaining 0, whereas Q is coming back to 0. Now we can see what is the peak to peak ripple on the D axis on the q axis for the current. Little bit heavy.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you explain one time more?
Can you?
Can you explain one time more, sir?
Yeah.
For Q axis, I am not understanding.
Okay. Other things other people have understood? All other things? Ask now itself if you have any doubt, any question. So what we are basically doing, let us start from beginning. We are applying a sequence something like 0, 1 to 7, and we want to see what impact this sequence is creating on the current. Is that correct? Is that clear? We have this vector Vs to be realized. This is our actual vector. V actual is our Vs. Now, anything what we are applying different from Vs, that will be called as error. So in case of PWM, when we apply the PWM voltage, there is voltage error. Here we have error given as voltage vector. So if we are applying vector 0, which means the error is V0 minus Vs, which means a vector like this. When we are applying V1, the error is something like this. When we are applying V2, the error is something like this. This is error in voltage vector. And then we have finally Vs. Now with every voltage error, we have current ripple associated with that. And here we find all the vectors are fixed for a particular sample. So that means this integration is nothing but scaling the voltage vector to a smaller value, smaller number. Understanding my point? Ranjal?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Clear? No, there is no doubt. If it is there, ask Himanshu. Are you sleeping or what?
No, sir. Sir, how are we deciding that the magnitude of the vector is increasing or
That is what I am saying. If let us say you are applying voltage 0, then what is your voltage error? V0 minus Vs, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
It is essentially
Yes, sir.
minus of Vs.
Minus
Now
of
if
this.
you compute the ripple corresponding to this, what it will be? Integral of V error divided by L times of dt. Now this dt is fixed, V error is fixed number, L is fixed. So this basically becomes minus VL times of Tz by 2 divided by L. This is your error caused by this particular vector. So which is what? It is a scaled version of minus of Vs.
yes, sir.
Getting my point?
Yes.
Similarly, for all the vectors, this is nothing but a scaled version of that. But parallel to that, here we are going along the axis of Vs.
Yes, sir.
When we are applying 1, we are going along this error vector. What is
Yes,
V1
sir.
minus Vs? Then we are going along this and then coming back. Similarly, if you apply 7210, your error will look something like this. Getting my point? Now, if you project, because these are all synchronously rotating vectors, so we can have our synchronously rotating reference frame dq, where q will be aligned along the voltage vector. So we can write our d axis q axis ripple in the current. So d axis ripple means what? Whatever is happening along d, whenever the vector is coming out of this q axis, that is the error along the d axis. So if you see, during the 0 vector, it is not coming out. It is always along the q axis. So we have 0 on both the sides for both Tz by 2 period. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Narendra, feeling like taking a nap or what?
No, sir.
Then when we are applying vector 1 or vector 2, we have come out of this plane, out of this line. We have come perpendicular to that. And how much we have come? This much. That is the projection of that vector on that axis. So that is why we go first, here on the D and then come down. So we are coming here and then going down. So we have reached a certain point and then gone back to 0. For Q axis, we are always going along somewhere. So once we go along Q, then we come back on the Q side towards some positive value. Then we are mostly varying on the D side and then coming back to Q. So different projections what we have, it looks like this. Clear? Naveen?
Hello.
Yes, Naveen.
Yes, for T2 the waveform for IQ is so slightly, no? So what is the reason?
Say again, what is the question?
For T2 cycle in IQ waveforms slightly different from what is the actual means.
No, actual means the error. We are going along the error. So this is the vector, what we get as error. Along that we are going. When you go along that, we are largely moving along this D axis. This is your D axis. This is almost parallel to D axis, right? Getting my point or not?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
See, why these slopes are different, you are asking that, or what you are asking?
Yeah, in T2 cycle, why it is so different?
Different means is smaller slope.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It is because that you are largely moving along or parallel to the D axis. Only slight change in Q value. See, you are here at some point. This is your Q value. Let me write with red. This is your Q point at the starting and this is your Q point at the end. How much different they are? Very slightly different. That is why these 2 points are slightly different. It's a line joining these 2 points, that's all. Clear?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So this is how we can do all the computation. Now let us see how different PWM techniques compare. So maybe I will extend this little bit so that we can compare lot of things within this. Okay, so now we have seen for 0127 or 7210 how this is. Okay, for 0127 first the error is like this, then it is going here, and these are all computations. These are all not just vague values. You compute all these values. So this is how your current ripple vector is moving. And for 7210 you have first going along this, then extending like this. Magnitude is same, it is just little exaggerated, nothing else. Magnitude is same because all the time intervals, everything is same. Now, if you have a sequence like 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, we are having TZ applied completely for the 0 vector at once, which means we are going to have large length along the the q axis at the first vector application itself. So this is our 0. Now when we apply 1, this will go something like this, and it will come back to 0. If you notice, earlier your q-axis ripple was this. In the middle you are having 0, so take this, some q by 2 here, q by 2 here. In this case, you have completely q going on one side and then slowly coming back. So which means on the q-axis, your ripple is more for 0, 1, 2. So you have achieved bus clamping, but along with that, you have sacrificed some of the current quality. Your current ripple is now more. Getting my point? D-axis ripple is same because it is the same height what it is achieving. This D-axis ripple is same, but on Q side it is only shifted. So if you plot on Q, it will look something like completely going like this and then coming down and then coming down. So this is how your ripple would look like on the Q axis for 0, 1, 2.
Sir, sir, peak to peak ripple in Q axis should be same in both cases, I think.
Why? Your
Because
0 is here now. It is going completely on one side, then coming back, then coming back.
yes, sir. But
so it
sir,
has traveled long distance on this side.
yes, sir. But sir, 0 vector is applied for same TZ time, sir.
Yes,
Here,
but here it is split. No, once you are going forward, then coming back, then going forward. It is split. Two parts are there. One is taking you forward, other is bringing you back. Here you are completely going in one direction. Isn't it?
yes, sir.
Understanding my point? Similarly, for 7 to 1, it will be inverted of this. Like 7, it will again go long distance on this side, then 2, then 1. This is how your ripple on current vector for 7 to 1 will look like. Again, for Q axis, there is huge error. For the complete period TZ, here that was split. Now, when we go for some advanced bus clamping techniques, so what happens, we'll just see. So let me remove all this. Okay, so for example, if we have any PWM technique, which is called as advanced bus clamping technique, it becomes slow actually sometimes. So this is something like 1012, or we have seen like some 2721. Now what these things are doing to our current error? Let's say you take first 1012. Now for 1012, what will happen? This is your origin point. So let me indicate it with some other number. Let's say Z0. Then first we are going along voltage vector or error 1. For how much time? T1 by 2. Here our active time vector is split. Then we are going for the 0 vector, TZ. Then again we are coming back for 1 and then we are going for 2. Seeing the difference, what we have done, we extended along 1, the error of 1, we went for the 0 vector error, then again the error for 1 vector 1 and then vector 2. So sequence like this 1 0 1 2. What it has done, it has cut down your Q axis ripple where you were completely down going down for TZ time. Now it is split in two parts. So our Q axis ripple has come down for this case, isn't it? Are you able to see that? Are you able to see that?
Yes, sir.
Earlier
Yes,
we
sir.
were going completely along one direction first and then we were coming back. So that's why the error was more. Here what we have done, we have split that time into two, and so we are having lesser ripple. Getting my point? Clear or
Yes.
not? Now if we go for 2721, what this will do again, the 2 is split. So this is applied for T2 by 2, this is T2 by 2, this is TZ and this is T1. So what we will have extension along 2. So let me write it down somewhere else. So this will first extend like this 2. Then we will have 0 vector going along this. Then again going like this and then coming back like this. Now if you see carefully, what we are trying to reduce is our d-axis ripple. So for any this PWM technique what we were having, we were continuously going and then coming back. Now here what we are trying to do, we are trying to come back little bit and then we are going further and then coming down. So that way this particular technique will cut down our d-axis ripple. Understanding my point? See, these are little bit advanced things. It's okay if you don't understand fully, that is fine. But the idea is to give you a glimpse of how space vector is a powerful technique and how different these switching sequences change our current ripple. Understanding my point or not? So
Yes, sir.
we have conventional space vector which is giving a standard thing. Then we can do some modification bus clamping and we find that one of our current ripple is going bad. Q axis current ripple is going bad. So we can do some modification. We can do some switching in between and we can come back to a lower Q axis current ripple while having the bus clamping also. So that's why these are called advanced bus clamping. These are giving double advantage. One is your bus clamping and second is your reduction in the current ripple. Similarly, we have another bus clamping which can reduce the d-axis current ripple. Understanding my point? So this double advantage wherever we get, those we call as advanced bus clamping PWM. Similarly, we can have many more. Let us say if you come up with one of your technique to have the PWM, let us say you go for something like 101012. So you can have a better current ripple. That means much lower value. So let us see how that will be. This is a little bit more different switching sequence if we go. So what we are doing, we are splitting our T1 into 3 parts and TZ into 2 parts. So what we will do basically, we will start, let's say from here, we'll go along 1. So we'll come here, we'll go along 0, then 1, then 0, then 1, and then 2. Understanding my point? So based on what is your requirement, let us say our achievement or our target is to reduce the q-axis current ripple. So we can switch many times like this within this boundary, and we can achieve this very small current ripple on the q-axis. Similarly, a sequence like 272721, this will reduce similar thing on the d-axis. So completely dependent on what you want, we can have a PWM technique. So this is the power of space vector PWM. We have some standard things like conventional space vector or bus clamping space vector PWM or whatever. But apart from that, you can have your own sequence while maintaining all the rules what we have discussed earlier. And you can achieve these kind of good current ripples. Understanding my point? So this is what I wanted to discuss. Now you can discriminate between two PWM techniques in terms of space vector, whether which one is good, which one is not good, why one should be preferred, one should not be preferred. Like that we can see. So a glimpse of how the current vector looks like, we can take a look at our previous program. So here we will have current vector plotted. You see this. This is how your current vector is actually moving. Fundamental component is of course going on the circle, but your ripple, what is sitting on top of that, that is having this kind of wavered motion. And this wavered motion is coming because of that. You're switching sequence 0, 1 to 7 and all. Understanding my point? If you choose, this is particularly done for sine triangle. If you choose another sequence, you can make it better. So let me add the common mode and make it a space vector. Let us see how it looks. Some improvement you can see, because now the TZ is equally distributed. So definitely if you plot both on top of each other, you will find the difference exactly. Understanding my point? This is how your current vector moves. And because current and flux are related through the inductance, so your flux vector will also find or follow something similar trajectory. Understanding?
Yes, sir.
This is how the space vector can visualize different things from a very different perspective. Now, quickly, we can just see why our d-axis, q-axis ripples are important and what is happening. So, particularly from machine point of view, which ripple we should try to minimize and which ripple we can have a little bit more, doesn't matter. So, from machine perspective, of course, the current RMS value or let's say the current THD value, this is important. But another important factor is your torque, which we have seen. We tried to minimize some nth harmonic torque by having the voltage harmonics reduced by some manner or equated in some manner. This we have seen. Now when we go for high switching frequency or high pulse number application, this kind of approach is very lengthy because there are so many components in the torque. One particular component we cannot think about reducing. There are so many. It's combination. So here we talk about the RMS torque ripple. And without going into derivation as of now, I will simply write the expression. So torque expression, if you write, it can be written in terms of the D axis, Q axis, flux and current. This is your general expression for torque in terms of D axis, Q axis flux and D axis, Q axis current. Now only thing to note over here is the DC value of this flux is 0. Our flux is mostly aligned along the D axis. So all the flux is along the D axis, and on the Q axis side we have 0 DC flux. But that does not mean we don't have any ripple also. So while doing the analysis, we cannot simply ignore this part. So what happens ultimately when we do all the computation and simplify this thing in terms of ripple and DC quantity, what we come up with is that your torque ripple is basically proportional to your DC flux, which is on the side D axis side, and somehow coming proportional to your Q axis current or Q axis flux. Apart from other few terms which I have not mentioned here. Since it's going too heavy, so I'm not going into much detail of this part. So what we understand from here that our torque ripple is basically proportional to our Q axis current ripple. It has only a small thing to do with the D axis current ripple. So if we completely focus on minimizing our Q axis current ripple or Q axis flux ripple, we can have a very good value of torque. So from motor point of view, if we are trying to target our torque ripple, we can simply target our Q axis current ripple, minimizing that, which means going for one of these techniques, which is cutting down the ripple along the Q axis. So something like 10, 10, 12 or similar to that. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir.
Good. So this is what it is. Now, actually PWM is limitless. You have endless possibilities and lot of things to do in this. But I am stopping here. Otherwise, too many things, and if you are not able to ingest that, it's not good. You should be able to understand that thing fully. Himanshu, everything is all right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope you are not dozing off. Your head is going up and down several times. Okay. So up to this point, any doubts or anything you have? So I am stopping PWM over here. I wanted to have a little bit more on the flux analysis side also, but I am leaving that now. Seeing your condition, it's not advisable to go further. So yeah, now ask if any questions you have. And those who are interested are always welcome. So they can understand more, they can do more things on this, how simple code can be written for this space vector implementation and all these things. These things we can discuss separately apart from the course. That's not part of the course. Okay. So questions, if you have any. Blank. All clear or all clear?
Hello,
Yes.
sir. As the earlier lecture, you said that P is greater than number of poles is greater than 21.
Ah,
So our ripple should be less.
yes.
But the higher harmonics filter we have to use for that.
What is higher harmonic filter?
Means for the reduction of harmonics.
So which filter you use?
So means this we are using more number of pulse, but the problem is also for that reducing the harmonic. Means lower harmonic will be reduced, but the higher harmonics will not reduce, na?
So have you computed the nth harmonic current or h harmonic current component across the inductor or in the inductor? Hmm?
Sorry, sir.
Have you computed the current in the inductor because of VH?
Current in the inductor.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Is
Yes,
it
sir.
or not? What is this number n telling you? If your harmonic order is going very high, let's say 100, this is what is your n. If your n is going very high, 100, is your current component not coming down automatically
Yes, sir.
compared to the lower ones?
Yes, sir.
So in any system which has inductor, that has inherent property of filtering out the higher order voltage harmonics. That is why we try to push all the lower order voltage harmonics towards the higher spectrum, so that this can be useful. This is always there. So if you go for n equal to 100, this is already 1/100th of whatever voltage component is there. If you go for n equal to 1000, it is already 1000th. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So going for a higher pulse number is always good. You always have this inherent filtering property, and this is true for any, let's say, grid connected converter or motor. Everywhere you have inductor automatically present over there. But in some cases, let us say, if still you are not able to get rid of some of the harmonics, you go for some higher order filters, let's say LCL kind of arrangement. So this is higher order, third order filter. That will attenuate some of the harmonics much better. But the problem with this comes in the resonance. So you need to take care of that. So different methods are there, and by and large, it is always good to operate at higher frequency compared to lower frequency if you have the option. If let us say your device cannot support, your system cannot support, then you can't do anything. But if you have the freedom, always operate at higher pulse number, the highest possible pulse number. Clear?
Yes, sir. And one more question, sir.
Hmm.
As we have studied in power electronics that inverters operate two types, mean 120-degree or 180-degree. So which is more useful for this space vector technique?
Say again.
Means which
No,
we
you
are
complete,
using.
complete question.
Means for inverter we have two mode, 120-degree or 180-degree.
That's all you are studying over here, huh? 120 degree, 180 degree. Did I even once mention this 120-degree mode, 180-degree mode here?
No.
Then
Okay.
See this 120 degree, 180 degree, you have not understood actually in totality what is happening. You again see this, what is there. This is your 180 degree mode, your square wave, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
And this is your 120 degree mode, or something else is there. Is this there or not? Say yes or no. Naveen. Are you there, Naveen? Okay, so this is what you have studied in 180 degree mode, 120 degree mode, or something else? Tell me, someone.
Yes, sir. In 180.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
This is what your square wave mode. And this is something called as quasi-square wave mode. Quasi-square wave mode means which looks like a square wave, but it is not square wave exactly. This is nothing but your 3-level inverter operating in some alpha 1, alpha 2. Isn't it?
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Yes, sir.
Why you are still stuck in this kind of things? We have gone much beyond this.
Means,
Naveen,
sir,
did you not learn this thing here?
Hello.
Yes, Naveen, tell.
Yes, sir. Actually, I'm going back to my concept which I have earlier studied. So I'm lagging behind.
No,
So I'm
don't
asking, sir.
so much. Don't lag behind so much. If you lag behind too much, at some point of time, you will start leading us. We will go beyond 360 degree and all. So don't do that, please. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So the point is anything what you are reading anywhere, you can correlate with whatever we have studied over here, either in terms of low switching frequency or in terms of sine triangle or space vector or whatever. So we have learned a more comprehensive, more thorough things, which will include all the PWM things, whatever you can have in 2-level or multi-level. This is a kind of complete overview what we have got. Now you tell me which one is better. Can you not tell now? Anybody, which one is better now? You tell 180 degree or 120 degree.
So 120 degree.
120.
Why?
sir, 180 degree, sir.
Why?
Sir, because in 180 degree we get the sine wave means fundamental.
Here also we will get sine wave fundamental.
But
Sir, we can eliminate more harmonics in second case. That's why.
Good. That is one way. It is correct.
More levels.
Hmm?
3 levels. 3 levels. Sorry.
Yes. Second opinion is also correct. We have some liberty to eliminate some harmonics. We have 3-level waveform. Moreover, what is your requirement? See, when you say 120 degree, this means your alpha 1, alpha 2 is fixed from pi by 3 to 2 pi by 3 or whatever it comes. Okay. your alpha 1, alpha 2 are fixed when you say 120 degree. First question you should ask, what is your fundamental component requirement? Are you fulfilling that? Can you operate your system? Are you fulfilling your fundamental requirement? You may not be giving over voltage. No, you should not give over voltage. Let's say your system needs only 200 volt. You cannot cannot pump there some 325 volts. Understanding my point?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, in 120 mode of conduction means the voltage waveform is depend on load actually. Means if load are purely inductive, then the voltage waveform is not accurate. Means it may be anything. Means it is not predictable. Means if we draw the pole voltage of 180 degree conduction for a purely inductive load, okay, then we get some value. Means waveform is unpredictable, sir. I mean to say.
Okay, so those things are more relevant for the thyristor based converters, right?
Yes, sir.
But in general, what I'm trying to say over here for the wave, because here we have IGBTs, we have more liberty. We can switch at our will. We can switch on, we can switch off, all these things we can do. We need not be dependent on the load current. These thyristor based converters are, that's why called load commutated converters. The commutation is dependent on the load current. Here it is not the case. We have the freedom to generate any waveform what we want. Understanding my point?
Yes, sir. That's why we prefer 180 degree mode of conduction more than 120 degree of conduction.
Yeah. That is where our V1 is fixed, our requirement is fixed, what we are doing that is also fixed, not much variation is there. We are operating at just maybe 1 point. Understanding my point? Here we are covering the kind of complete spectrum in the V by F. So whichever voltage we want to generate, we can. But the questions to be asked are whether our fundamental voltage is getting fulfilled or not. Second question, yes, what is suggested, if we can eliminate some of the harmonics or not, then how many voltage levels are there? These are the things which gives us idea about which PWM we should go for. Then comes the later stage like switching loss, switching energy loss, or conduction loss, or these kind of things. So here we start thinking little bit more. The things are little bit more involved. So it's completely dependent on what you want. No one can say, okay, 180 is better or 120 is better or what. In general, for a particular system that could be good, that could be bad. But in general, it depends purely on your requirement, what you want. Getting my point?
Yes,
Understood,
sir.
Navneet?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes. So before jumping into conclusion for anything, first ask yourself, what is my requirement? Is this thing fulfilling my requirement or not? If not, then it's useless. Okay. Any further questions? That's all.